Technical correction.
All right.
There you go.
This isn't a court deposition or anything, is it?
Oh, no.
Okay, great. Just checking. We're here today to have a conversation with y'all. We want to tell you some things that we think we've learned through a couple of studies, the results of which are before you in the form of those two CNA Military Advisory Board reports, and to get your ideas, hear your reactions to this idea of energy security, climate security, and national security. I am representing a dozen or so fellow flag and general officers, retired, 3 and 4 stars, representing all 4 services. We came together in February of last year, and it was as a result of some previous work that had been done by the Military Advisory Board at CNA that put out the report that has the red outline eagle on it, and that is called National Security and the Threat of Climate Change. 2 of the key conclusions there were, 1, that climate change acts as a threat multiplier in regions of instability, critical regions of instability around the world. And secondly, that this idea of energy security, climate change, and national security are all tied up. You have to really consider all of them as you approach any one of them. So we came together, all different backgrounds, different services, and our consensus over more than a year of getting briefed, doing some reading, having many discussions is contained in the second report with the eagle outlined in the green report. Here are the questions that we asked. What are the historical temperature trends? What conditions can these trends possibly produce? Projected impacts if the trends continue. How do these conditions impact our national security overall? And how should the national security team and community respond, especially our men and women in uniform, now and in generations to come? Here's a picture of the Arctic ice cap that was taken, as the slide indicates, the 21st of September 2005. You can see this area on the right-hand side, about the 3 o'clock position. That's North America. Alaska is down about the 4:30 position. Atlantic on the kind of the 1 o'clock position. Pacific down here, the 6 o'clock position. And then Soviet Union, Denmark, Norway over on the left-hand side of the screen. The fabled Northwest Passage would go from the Atlantic to the Pacific, and it would skirt the area along the North American continent. And you can see it's iced over. 2 years later, it took a sailboat 3 weeks to sail through that area of clear water that you can see depicted just in that wavy dark line right in here. It's open and free of sea ice. One naval example, if you will, to show that things are changing. Now, let me just say that we in the Military Advisory Board are not scientists. We don't want to get into any theological debates with scientists about which side is right or wrong, which study is best. We said, look, we have learned through hard experience in our military careers that you've got to listen to indicators and warnings and trends, form your judgment, and in the case of dangers that seem to be pretty serious in terms of consequence, you probably ought to do something, because you will never ever have 100% certainty. But if you got indicators, warnings, and trends, then maybe we ought to be thinking about doing something. Completely removed from who did what, how high the sea is going to rise, what the temperature is going to be. That's for the scientists to continue to study, and it is a very, very complex science that's still ongoing. This was a quote from one of our esteemed members, retired Army Chief of Staff Gordon Sullivan. We never have 100% certainty, and if you wait to have 100% certainty something is going to something bad is going to happen on the battlefield, and that is something that we all collectively on the Military Advisory Board knew. So the critical concern related to the consequences of climate change, and in answer to some of those questions that I had up there a couple of slides ago, is that the consequences of climate change can affect most of the troubled regions of the world and cause fragile governments to be unable to understand the full ramifications and to cope, certainly not to understand them in time. That there is likely to have increased conflict over scarce resources, and as a result of that conflict and competition to have mass migration. Basics: water, too much of it or not enough, too much in a flood, not enough in a drought. Health factors, food, safety, a feeling of desperation and hopelessness that can be aggravated by a hostile environment. Fragile governments become failed governments, and these vacuums of power, if you will, become breeding grounds for extremism and terrorism. So let me just put this up here. How do you get a sense of the future? We don't know what the future is. We can't predict it with any degree of accuracy. But what we can see are past and present day security issues and conditions that we are concerned about. Darfur, problems with water, drought, food production. In the drought in the sub-Saharan part of the country caused traditional herders, animal herders, to move south, got into some tribal competition and conflict with people who were basically farmers, and that started to escalate. Governments got involved, and right now it's a humanitarian assistance disaster relief mess. And another case in point in the same area of the world is Somalia. You all remember Black Hawk Down. Black Hawk Down, in which we lost 17 wonderful Americans, was only the latest in a long series of events that led up to it. Climate-driven starvation that accelerated the fall of a very fragile government, and into that gap fell terrorists and extremists. So now Somalia is a net exporter of piracy and and extreme Islam as well. It has people that are going across the Gulf of Aden to Yemen, Saudi Arabia, and up into Ethiopia and Eritrea. Why do I bring these up? These are happening now. We all know about these things. The best way I can think about the potential consequences of climate change are this. Take any area of the world, look at it, places like in Africa, the Middle East, the Persian Gulf, South Asia with Pakistan, India, China, and you put a big magnifying glass on it, and that magnifying glass is the effects or the potential effects of too much water, not enough water, mass migrations, and you've got a recipe for more business for the United States military, and that's the thing that's the conversation we're talking about. Drought, causing people to have to migrate for the essentials of life. This type of a camp exists around the world, literally in too many places already today. Those vacuums of governments, failed governments, filled by extremists, and creating a whole new generation that will continue to spread beliefs that are antithetical to the United States and to our allies. Impacts in Europe. Europe is already dealing with immigration issues, as we are in our own hemisphere. There's immigration from North Africa, specifically area around Morocco, to across the Straits of Gibraltar, from Libya and that area, or over to Italy.